Okay, so welcome everybody. As I say, there still might be some people coming along. Please note that we will be recording the session. Your microphones and your cameras have been turned off, but you can use the chat function. So please do keep in touch with us throughout the conference. Add any comments, thoughts or questions for anybody that's presenting today, and we will make sure that we feed any questions back, and there may be time to look at those towards the end of the conference. So very pleased to be able to welcome our esteemed speakers today. We have Professor Verity Campbell-Barr from the University of Plymouth, Rebecca Spry from Minibugs, and Dr. Jacqueline Harding, who is an educational consultant, and she'll be talking to us about her journey. So, without further ado, let me introduce Verity to you. I can see Rebecca on my screen. I'm just going to minimize. Okay, so Verity Campbell-Barr is a professor in early childhood education at the University of Plymouth. And she has over 20 years of experience researching early childhood education and care services. Her research interests focus on the quality of early childhood education, particularly the role of the early childhood workforce in supporting high-quality provision. She has an interest in the concept of child-centeredness and what that means for quality pedagogic interactions within early years services, and has co-led 2 European projects in this area. Verity has also undertaken international research on the knowledge, skills and attitudes for working in early childhood services, and has completed an analysis of the full range of early childhood degrees available in England, as well as looking at early years workforce policy across the UK. Drawing on her interest in quality and pedagogic interactions, she has embarked on research into what constitutes a high quality early years curriculum and the centrality of the workforce in delivering this. Verity, we're very pleased to welcome you to the conference. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Janet, and good morning, everybody. Can I just say I was getting really excited seeing like Callywith College come up and City College Plymouth coming up as well. I'm based in Liskeard and obviously work at the University of Plymouth, so it's always nice to know you've got some of your neighbours online. But welcome to everybody, and it's a real pleasure to be here. What I want to talk to you about today is some of my research that Janet was just referring to in terms of why you guys are so important for the quality of early childhood education services, but also to talk a little bit about what transitioning to university might look like. I am going to talk about the University of Plymouth. My marketing team would be very upset if I talked about any other university. But actually, one of the things I do know is that people that go on to study at university in terms of early childhood studies courses and early childhood education courses tend to go to their local university. So what I'm saying will be true of other universities as well. But for those of you that are local, the great advantage of me is I've got such a long name. If you put me into Google, I'm really easy to find. So you can drop me an email and I'd be really happy to welcome people onto campus if anybody wanted to come and take a visit. So if we go on to the next slide, please, Janet. One of the things you might be wondering is why higher education, why university? And it doesn't matter how you do the research. One of the things that we know is that the qualifications of those who work with young children is absolutely pivotal to the quality of early childhood education. And for example, some of you will have come across the Effective Provision of Preschool Education project, which was done a number of years ago now, but it showed a correlation between those who have a degree and the quality of the services that are being offered to young children. So what we find is those with degrees tend to enhance children's outcomes. And obviously what we want is to see improved outcomes for children. I think one of the other things also is that I'm very privileged in being able to visit other parts of the world and see how they approach their early childhood education and care provision. And one of the things is that internationally, what you see is a move towards graduate-led within early childhood education services. So that doesn't mean that everybody needs to be a graduate, because we recognise it's important to have a mix of staff. But actually, one of the things that we know is that that graduate-led really helps to drive the quality of pedagogical experiences for young children. So if we go to the next slide, if you're interested, one of the projects I've completed most recently was funded by the Nuffield Foundation and conducted with Early Education, who represent early childhood educators across the UK, and it's the only organisation that is UK-wide. So this was a UK-wide project where we were looking at qualification requirements, CPD requirements, pay and terms and conditions of the workforce and all of those things. And the thing that we concluded is that often when we talk about early childhood education, people can be quite dismissive and think it's really easy. But as you guys will know yourselves, actually it's not. And one of the things I'm really passionate about is getting people who work with young children to realise just how knowledgeable you are. And one of the things in this project that we highlighted is that, you need to know everything from theories around child development through to something about Peppa Pig and what's been on the latest episode of Peppa Pig. And when you kind of put that as a spectrum, that's a huge amount of knowledge that you guys need to have in your repertoire in order to work with young children. So for those that are interested, you can read this full report, but this is us advocating for you as a workforce in terms of getting the government to put more resource into the workforce and to support professionalising and supporting professional development and so forth, because we know that the quality of the workforce is so pivotal to the quality of the experiences for young children. If we go to the next slide, one of the things that I know from a range of different research projects that I've done is that studying at higher education level will help you in developing your professional knowledge, skills and attitudes needed to work with young children. And I think it's really important that we do include attitudes within that, because this is a relational profession. You are dealing with young children. It is just as important for you to learn to be patient and empathetic and caring as it is for you to learn about knowledge on child development, for example. The thing that we also know is that higher education will support you in developing your reflective practice skills. So in part of that quality is that you've got the ability to think about the way in which you work with young children. It supports in professionalism as well, and it also supports in developing leadership skills. One of the things I would say is that if you're looking at higher education courses, do look at the content of the modules that they're delivering to make sure that it is speaking to each of those different areas, and you will get something that will support you in leadership as much as supporting you developing the appropriate attitudes for working with young children. Next slide, please. So this is a project that Janet referred to in my introduction, that we looked at the full range of early childhood education degrees available for somebody wanting to go on to study at university. And we also looked at what those degrees looked like. So if we go to the next slide. Now, this was done in 2020, so it is a couple of years ago, but we realised when we looked at this project that if you are a young person sat at home and you go onto the UCAS website and you decide, I don't mind where I go in England in order to do my degree, there were over 300 possible degrees to choose from. Now, I don't know about you, but if I looked at that, I would go, oh, wow, that's quite a lot, and probably shut the computer. Don't be worried about it, because it just represents the different ways that people go about delivering their degrees. So you do have within that teacher training qualifications, but you also have, and the vast majority of them are early childhood studies degrees. And one of my roles that I have is I sit on the Early Childhood Studies Degree Network, and they have a website. They've got loads of resources there. So do have a look at that if you're interested in degrees. One of the things that we found, though, is that within that over 300 degrees, there are variations. So do have a look, because we found that you could be studying early childhood, but actually that could be looking at children from birth to 5, birth to 8, we even found one that was birth to 21. Now, whether a 21-year-old would want to be referred to as being in early childhood, I think they might object. But just, take the time to look at the detail that's available on websites, just so that you can understand the degrees that are out there. Next slide, please. But what we found in terms of the things that will be covered in a degree is it could be any of these things that are up on the screen now in front of you. Now, for me, actually, what this shows is that an early childhood degree is really quite complex. So I actually did a sociology degree. Well, that's just one element of what's listed there on this. You're going to be doing sociology, psychology, you're going to learn about play, it might be a bit of history, a bit of philosophy. So actually, you're the most knowledgeable people at the university, because most people just do a single honours in one of these areas. You're going to be covering all of these different areas. So there will be a bit of politics, there will be stuff around inclusion, of course there will be things around safeguarding and children's rights. So it's a real mix of the knowledge, the skills and the attitudes in terms of doing a degree. But the most important thing, I think, that any of my colleagues, irrespective of which university they work at, will talk about when you study for an early childhood studies degree, you are becoming an advocate for children. And the greatest pleasure in my professional role when I work with students is seeing how passionate they are about children's voices and making sure that children have good quality experiences when they're working with young children. And that is absolutely what we want. So sometimes I joke with my students and say, I don't mind what grade you get on this particular essay. I don't mind what your final degree mark looks like. What I want to know is that at the end of the day, when needed, you will stand up for children and you will stand up for their rights. And I think that's the most important thing about an early childhood studies degree. So what might this mean for you if we go to the next slide? So as I say, I'm using Plymouth as an illustrative example. What you will see across universities is that they will welcome students with T-level qualifications. And actually at Plymouth, we were one of the early adopters because we recognise that people take all different paths in their professional journeys, all different paths in their educational journeys. And we feel really passionately about university is for everybody, irrespective of where you might have come from. And so that's a real thing about the University of Plymouth, is that we really want to support people coming from all different backgrounds to be able to access university. And so that's why we were an early adopter of T-levels. And within that, we will consider a whole range of different T-levels that you can see there. So education-based, childcare-based, social sciences and so forth. If you were thinking, oh goodness, Verity, university, that sounds a bit scary, I'm not sure I could do that. I have had those students walk through my door, and often they are the ones that by the end of the degree programme are the strongest advocates for children. We've had them organising protests in Plymouth around the quality of special educational needs services in the city. So, it really does have an impact on people. But if you are nervous, we also have what's called a foundation year. So rather than doing just the 3-year degree programme, you would do like a pre-year, if you like. And actually, it just helps you learn how to be a student, what going to university might look like. And it will just help you and support you in building your confidence to then be able to go on and progress to doing the 3 years of the degree. And actually, once you're in that degree programme, I'm never able to tell the difference as to who's gone down which road when it comes to studying. So you will be there, you'll be a university student, and you'll get to participate in university life beyond just your degree programme. If we go to the next slide. So within the early childhood studies degree that we have at the University of Plymouth, we believe that we are supporting you to think about how you're going to go about enriching children's lives and their learning. Now, one of the things is that isn't necessarily about you going to work in a preschool or a nursery. We have students that actually go on to work in prisons supporting women who are in prison with their children for whatever reason that might be, and they're providing early education experiences in that way. I've had a student who went on to become the Southwest coordinator for the National Trust, doing their family days. And so when you see family days being advertised at National Trust properties in the Southwest, that's an early childhood studies graduate. So we believe within the degree programme that you should have varied placement opportunities. So we will encourage you to go and work in nurseries, but we will also ask you to challenge yourself and perhaps go and work in a very different environment. So, as I say, potentially to go up to the prison that we've got locally to us, and to realise, the difficulties of being a parent in that kind of environment. What we want is that you become a graduate that advocates for positive change for young children, that you become the advocate that is all about children having the best quality experiences, irrespective of where their background might be and their family circumstances. And you can see there some of my colleagues and some of my students who are now in their second year. One of the things that we will do is we'll take you down to the beach with the children, because why would we not do that when we're so lucky to be so close to the coast here? If we go to the next slide. So what you will see, and what you will have seen from that list of subject areas that's about what's included in a degree, is that it's multidisciplinary. It's also multi-professional, as you've seen from some of the examples I've given you as to what my students have gone on to do in terms of their professional careers. Obviously, the focus is on childhood and on families. And what you see in my team is that I've got everything from somebody who is a midwife, someone who used to work as a childminder. I actually come from a nannying background, and then went on to work for local authorities. So you'll get to meet professionals from a whole range of different backgrounds. The other thing also is that our programme is very flexible. So we recognise that going to university is expensive, that the world is expensive at the moment. So actually we timetable you so that you will be concentrated over 2 or 3 days a week, which then means you can spend 2 or 3 days a week earning money. One of the things around that is we actually have a scheme called Earn as You Learn. So we work with local nurseries whereby they will offer you shifts, for want of a better word, on the days when you're not timetabled, so that you can be earning a bit of money whilst also getting professional experience. For example, we have a nursery on campus and they support us in doing that. You will find that we have other local partnerships as well. So there are other experiences that we can support you with accessing. But one of the things that you will find is that we do ensure that our degree is full and relevant. One thing I will say, in terms of that project that I've just done that's cross UK wide, do make sure that your degree is full and relevant. There are some people advertising degrees that might not provide you with your full and relevant qualifications. So do just make sure you check that out with wherever you choose to go and study. Next slide, please. As I say, our pattern of study, it is a full-time course, but we do have this footprint so that you do have time for your independent study, doing volunteering. For example, in Plymouth, we work very closely with Keam Green Spaces, and we're currently supporting them to develop parent and toddler groups and parent and baby groups. So you might get involved in things like that. It's very rare for us to do a session where we will just talk at you. We are very interactive in our sessions. So there's lots of kind of workshops. The thing that makes me smile the most is we have these special resource boxes for my lecturing team, and we've got Play-Doh in there and glitter in there and sticky stuff and all sorts of things. And I have been known to sit in a meeting and a senior colleague at the university go, "Why is there so much glitter on this table?" That would have been me and my students. We might have had a little bit of a glitter moment in one of our sessions. So it's not like you see university in films where everybody's sat in rows and kind of just having to listen to the lecturer. We want to get involved with you. We get really interactive, but we do design the course in such a way that your very first module will support you with how do you go about doing your independent study? What does reading for university look like? And as you progress, you will find that you can become more specialist in the areas that you want to specialize in. So you can pick option modules. So for example, if you've got a passion for outdoor learning, we've got a module for you to go down that road. If you're passionate about special educational needs, we've got that for you as well. Next slide, please. I've referred to my lovely, lovely team that I've got. You have access to us all of the time, but also you have access to wider support services. So what you will see across universities now is they've got huge teams to support, whether that's managing your finances, maybe it's your mental health, all sorts of things. You also then have what the Students' Union will offer in terms of clubs and societies. So have a look. Universities are more than just the courses that they offer. If we go to the next slide please. So the good thing about our degree, there is no exams. I can remember doing the exams myself and just the sweat and the pressure of that environment. It is all coursework. In terms of that coursework, yes, there will be some essays, but actually at the moment, the module that I'm delivering, it's a portfolio. So they're creating posters, they're creating observation frameworks. It's really practical and it's really hands-on to ensure that it's meaningful assessment that you can then take into your professional careers and once you graduate from us. Next slide, please. I've referred a little bit to the placement opportunities that we have and how varied they are. But we also have a range of other opportunities. So we have, if you wanted to, you can go and study in other countries, primarily across Europe. We do study trips sometimes where it's maybe just a week or two away. But actually, we've got such a wide-ranging network now that we've got really rich volunteering opportunities available for you. One that's just popped into my head, for example, is students going over to the Box, which is the museum that we have in Plymouth, and they are supporting the Box to develop sessions that they do for preschools and primary classes. So lots of different volunteering opportunities there. If we go to the next slide, I've referred a little bit to what some of my students go on to do. So yes, a lot of them do go and work in early years settings, but we've got people working in the families, hubs and children's centres, working in local authorities, working for organisations like Home Start and Barnardo's, working in Women's Refuge and places like that. Some even go on to become lecturers in colleges and universities. Others perhaps finish their degree and decide they want to go and do volunteering and go out to countries where we've got links to, such as Gambia and Czech Republic and Chile. So Chile is an example of where you can go for a fortnight, spend some time working in a preschool over there. And yes, some students then like it so much that they end up going back there once they've finished their degree. Next slide, please. So that's just some of the things that our students have gone on to do. So you can see some have gone into the police, some have become mental health professionals, occupational therapists, all sorts of things that people can do. But what ultimately we're equipping you to do is to work with children and families in whatever professional capacity that might look like as you go forward. If we go to the next slide, please. So for me, as a professional, the thing that I am so passionate about is you, okay? And what knowledge and skills and attitudes you need to become the professional that you want to be. So at the University of Plymouth, we do the research into what makes the best graduate so that we can make sure that you succeed in your professional career. And my students probably get slightly sick of me and how enthusiastic I get for their professional knowledge and skills, but that's because I know how important it is for the children that they go on to work with in the future. There's a QR code there if you want to scan it to find out more about our course. But as I said at the beginning, put my name into Google. My son was very impressed that you don't even have to put the full name in and I come up already in the search engine. I'm happy to take questions via email, or if we have time now, I can answer a few questions now. But over to you, Janet. Thank you.
Absolutely amazing. Verity, thank you so, so much. And I think certainly what that's done for me is kind of, wow, look at all these opportunities that are there. You are at the beginning of your journey, and this is so, so exciting. So I would absolutely advocate on your behalf to please, please, please think about what Verity has said as a student in terms of those quality interactions that we have with our babies, with our children, and with our families that actually make that positive difference. And so the work that you're going to be doing is so significant to the future of our children. So it just reminds us, and I'm inspired totally by the different sorts of things that you do at Plymouth and the opportunities that are there. How exciting. I wish I was starting my journey all over again now, because this just sounds absolutely amazing. So we have got a couple of minutes. If there's anything, I'm just going to go to colleagues from NCFE. So Gemma or Angie, is there anything in the chat for Verity at the moment? And please do pop any questions in the chat that you have for any of our wonderful speakers today.
Hi, Janet. No questions directly in the chat, but there is a question from me, Verity. Can I just say, I mean, I am a bit obviously biased, you being down here in the Southwest, but can I just say to everybody, what a great opportunity, because you are based so close to the coast and the opportunities that you have around you. I think it is a great opportunity for those that come to yourselves, but no matter what university. I have an early years degree, and I know the amount that you learn on that course and the opportunities it gives you. So do check it out, because it's a wonderful opportunity, and it opens the doors to so many things.
Absolutely.
And I know obviously we're biased because we're fortunate to be close to the coast, but actually it was one of my students that started the beach school movement.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So inspired by the forest school movement, she was like, well, why do we have to talk about forests? Why don't we talk about beaches as well? And That's what she did her final year research project on. And now that's a thing that we all talk about. But 15 years ago, she was in a classroom with me. Well, actually, it might be more than 15 years ago, showing my age now. But it just shows how, I think the thing that university gives you is that real opportunity that if you've got a passion for something, you can go and you can follow that, and we give you the opportunity to pursue your interests. But also, if you're like, well, I might be interested in this, or I might be interested in that, those placement opportunities, you can dip your toe in different areas to try out different things and kind of help you. I mean, one of the things we've got is an award-winning careers team at the university who are also there to nurture you, in addition to my team as well. So yeah, we're all about opportunity at the University of Plymouth for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you so, so much. Okay, Verity, you are very, very welcome to stay with us, but I do know you may have other commitments. Sounds like you've got a very, very busy role there, but thank you so much for the time that you've shared with us today. And just another shout out to people, do be assured that if you want to pop anything into the chat, Verity can access this chat right now, or we're able to pass any of those things on if Verity's happy for us to do that. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I want to move on to our next speaker, Rebecca Spry. Rebecca is a mum, a wife, and currently an employee at Minibugs Nurseries. And if we think about what Verity was just talking to us about and the importance of that role, working with our babies and children, we can absolutely really value what Rebecca is going to share with us today. So her current role is the National Education Training and Development Manager, and she's been in the early years industry for nearly 15 years. So Rebecca has a passion for both children and staff development and would describe herself as a fixer. Do you know, I think most people working with babies, children and families, they're looking for that solution-focused approach, aren't they? So I like that. Well, she's a fixer. Always looking for new ways to inspire, motivate, and mentor those around her. And I was particularly interested, Rebecca, when you say motivate and mentor, because I do think that role of mentoring is so significant and often undervalued. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Rebecca, because I know you've got your own set of slides. So I'll stop sharing and I will pass over to you.
Right, let's hope this works.
No problem.
Let's just check.
While you're doing that, I'm just going to give an absolutely welcome shout out to Dr. Jacqueline Harding, who I can see has joined us there. Good morning, Jacqueline.
Right, has that worked?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me here today. This is one of the first things that I've done in this kind of audience and stuff as well, so please do bear with me. I'm feeling a bit nervous, but you know, hopefully it's good nerves, and hopefully I can share some like a nice story with you, really. So I thought if I start with just telling you a bit about my journey and how I've kind of got to the position that I'm in now. And actually, it started with college, where I did law, psychology, and English literature. So very different to childcare. I was kind of brought up in the era where it was, if you want to earn good money, you got to do something in law or medicine. And so, you know, that's kind of, you know, what I just was conditioned to do. However, when I was doing it, I kind of actually felt like my priorities in life shifted. And this is where I was like, actually, I want a really good career, but I want something that's really rewarding and meaningful. And actually, Verity, you'll be this is a nice story for you, but I actually enrolled at Plymouth University. I did this through Truro College. So yeah, it was on my doorstep, but yeah, it was through the University of Plymouth. And I will say it was a very positive experience. So yeah, thank you for that. But I enrolled with Plymouth University doing early childhood education. So I am the kind of person who likes to have something that's a bit more of a long-term pace and training. So I did do my foundation degree, and I knew that in my head I wanted to do my foundation degree, but I wanted a bit of a break where I could learn some different skills and things like that, and then look at whether I went on to do my honours and things following that. So when I done my foundation degree, I then went and worked in a couple of different nurseries. I was doing different positions. I was doing from like deputy manager to practitioner. And I found that even though every nursery followed the same statutory requirements and Ofsted guidance, everyone operated so vastly different and the interpretations were different. But the one thing that really stood out was that everyone had that same passion for childcare. But my experience with staff development was so different. And it was here that actually I started thinking, is childcare for me? So I spent some time working at a children's hospice with end-of-life children. This was a very different experience, but had lots of transferable skills that I'd learned through my degree that I was able to apply them in a different way. So kind of very similar to what Verity said, that actually just because you've got this childhood education degree doesn't mean you're just in this one box. I was able to branch off and try different things. But then in 2018 is where my mini bugs journey began. So I started off as deputy manager in October 2018, but then by December I found myself in the manager's shoes, and we were due its very first Ofsted inspection. And this was back in the time where it was September 2019 when the Ofsted inspection framework completely changed. I know it's changed again now, but this was where the learning walks and things like that were introduced. So whilst I was trying to learn a whole new company, I also had to learn a whole new Ofsted inspection framework. But through the team that I had and all the passion, care and investment that we put in, we actually were able to secure outstanding. And that was like a really proud moment for me. And the things that they really commended us on was investment in staff and how we were supporting our staff and progressing our staff. So it was during this time that actually I thought, it's not that childcare is not for me. It was more that I needed to find the right company to work for. So to understand a bit more about my role, because I'm now a National Education Training Development Manager, I thought to understand a bit more about my role, it would be good to just kind of explain a little bit about Minibugs. So Minibugs is a small company. It started with a director, ops manager and one nursery. That quickly became 3. and we've now got our 4th nursery, which was open during lockdown. So actually seeing the people that were here, we've actually, there's quite a few nurseries that are close to you as well. So we've got one in Halifax, Ovenden, we've got one in Sheffield, in Winkerbank, we've got one at Liscard, and we've got one at St Austell. So actually we've got 89 staff now, 6 members in the HQ team, and being spread hundreds of miles apart from each other, I knew that continuous communication and striving to be the best would be a challenge that suited me down to the ground. So I'm the kind of person, I always like to know the whys, the purpose and everything behind everything I do. So I thought it'd be nice to share actually what led to the creation of my role now, because it's not often in nurseries or private nurseries that you see somebody with a role that's just heavily invested in the development and training for staff. So what led to that was actually I would quite often go to training, networking events, or even groups on social media. If any of you are part of groups on social media, you'll quite often hear people talking about all of these challenges in childcare. And that's from staff leaving the profession, lack of resources, staff shortages, too much paperwork, it being that the childcare sector is really undervalued, there's Ofsted pressure, there's low wage, not enough support. To be fair, the list goes on and on and on. But actually, here at Minibugs, I was found that I was in a position where the directors were so invested in the staff development that it actually meant that introducing this role was a little bit easier, which was good. So I needed to start thinking outside the box. Like, we know all of these challenges. We know that there's some things that are out of our control, government funding, the statutory compliance, and business costs and things like that. They are out of our control. There's not anything we can do about that. But there is plenty that is inside our control. And this is where my role came from. I knew that we needed to invest in our staff. And despite being a small company, the directors understood the importance of staff investment. So I found myself in the mix of a creation of role that didn't exist on paper. There was no job description, just a goal of investing in staff. So I was like, how am I going to do this? So when I first discussed this with the directors, it was very much based off the challenges I've spoken about. So how could I make this vision of helping staff to be the best version of themselves to ultimately provide the best possible care to the children? I am 100 miles an hour. I wanted to get straight into it. I wanted to do all this staff training. I wanted to have everyone out the room. I wanted to have training days, and I wanted to empower the staff. However, we know that's not realistic in nurseries. We've got ratios to follow. There's always somebody poorly because of all the germs and stuff you're exposed to. So I kind of needed to take a step back, and I needed to think about how can I practically make this possible. And I needed to spend time focusing on the foundations. I needed to make sure those foundations were in place. So with this, I needed to look at the role expectations and competencies, which I will talk about a little bit more on the next slide. I needed to make sure that it was accessible for staff. I needed to make sure the training and development was there and the content was created, but also I needed to understand what those skills gaps were to be able to put any of this in place. Now at Minibugs, we've kind of got 3 levels, if you like, where we kind of talk about our core staff. So that's our assistants, our apprentices and our practitioners. And actually, they are probably some of the most important people you can have in the nursery. They're the ones that are in with the children. They're the ones that are having those meaningful engagements, all those interactions and building those relationships. We've got the aspiring staff. So those staff that are actually thinking, I'm loving this, but I want a little bit more. What can we do to help support those guys? So this is where we introduced our senior practitioner and also the Senko role, because that is pivotal in a nursery to making sure it's accessible to all of the children. And then we have our rising stars. So this is what I call our leadership and management team. So we've got our room leader. We have a third in charge because actually the communication between the room and the management team that's heavily admin is vitally important. We've got the deputy manager and our manager. So that's kind of a little bit how Minibugs looks like here. So I've created this role, I've laid the foundations, I've got a mission to invest in the staff, but what do I do now? And this brings me to the biggest topic I have the most passion for, and that's mentoring. So I thought the best place to start is to look at our children, because our children at Minibugs are thriving. They're making good progress. We've secured this fantastic outstanding rating. So what is it we are doing for the children that it works so well that we can apply the same principles to our staff? And this is where I was thinking, actually, we really look at our children as individuals. We look at their likes, their dislikes, what their learning style is, how we can meet their needs, and those kind of things. So I thought, how can I apply that to the provision that we offer for staff? So at Minibugs, we have our curriculum, which are always learning goals that we've set out for the children. So what is it we want our children to look like by the time they leave Minibugs and go on to their further education? So our Minibugs curriculum, I thought, let's create a curriculum for staff. So we call these our competencies. So we have competencies in every area you could think of, from safeguarding to what a handover might need to look like, to what I've been working on recently is what the expectations are, what those competencies are for supporting our apprentices. So we've been building this in a programme which is accessible to all staff. They can go on, they can mark themselves on the competencies, a bit like the old school where we had emerging, developing, securing and mastering. We've kind of applied the same logic because actually that does work quite nicely. So they score themselves. I'm able to look at that, see where the gaps are, kind of understand, okay, is it safeguarding we need to apply a bit more mentoring on? Is it just typical child development? What does a typical 2-year-old look like? It was able to help us understand where those gaps are. So for some staff, we know that some staff might need a little bit of extra support. They might be going through something in their life, which means that they're not able to focus, or they've got challenges, or whatever it might be. So when we have children that need those little bit of extra support, we kind of end up putting an ILP in place. So let's do the same for our staff. Let's put a commitment plan in place. But the biggest thing about our commitment plans is not only just putting all the expectations on the practitioner or the staff member in question, but actually what are we doing as a company to support them? So we would have what their commitment is versus what our commitment might be. So if it's, for example, they're really struggling to get to work on time, their commitment would be that they need to start making an effort to plan their mornings out a bit better. Our commitment would be we'd provide you with 4 weeks worth of raters, give you a copy so you could take home so you can really plan it out. So whatever kind of route of your life you're going, or whatever challenge you're facing, we kind of look at, okay, how can we help you with that challenge and how can we support you with that? And then very much similar to, you've got your staff, you're looking at the individual, you're kind of putting support in place for those that might need a bit extra support. You kind of do your cohort analysis of your room. You kind of look at your patterns, your trends, like, is there anything in the environment we need to change? Is there multiple children that need more support in a certain area? We do the same with supervisions. So we really spend time looking at those supervisions to understand where the gaps are with your competencies, your commitment plans, and so we can make sure that the support and the hands-on mentoring that we can offer is the best possible thing for each individual staff member. So this is kind of where I started looking at, okay, well, I kind of understand what mentoring and stuff needs to be, but how do I know the rest of my team feel empowered to be able to mentor those around them? And we were actually quite often finding that people were being promoted because they were good practitioners. You have a really, really good practitioner, they're promoted to room leader. But we know actually to manage a room of children, you can absolutely fly at. But when you're managing staff and you're mentoring staff, that's a completely different skill set you've got to learn. So how can we support staff to do this? And this is where we introduced our leadership and management programme. Myself and Marie from our HR department have been working together to write it, because I could have all these wonderful ideas and I kind of needed to say, no, actually, legally, we need to make sure we're doing this. So we've been working in tandem for that, because I know I can get quite passionate. So we're currently halfway through our leadership and management programme. So this is for our rising stars. So we've got our room leaders, our third in charge and management team all on this programme at the minute. We're halfway through, and so far it's been receiving great feedback, and we're really starting to see results and improvements. So our staff retention has massively improved. Touch wood, we've not lost any staff members for quite a significant amount of time now, but it's just the general sense of settlement. Like everyone seems so much more settled. They are really invested in their own CPD. They're taking their ownership, and those kind of things. So it's been really rewarding to see. Don't get me wrong, we still have our challenges. I think anyone in early years, kind of from what Verity was saying, there's so many different skills and so many different hats you've got to wear, from almost being therapist to parents, to doctors to the children, to your early years skills, safeguard. There's so many things. So we do have our challenges. However, we are overcoming them, and we're empowering our management teams to be able to do this. We're equipping them with all of the skills and knowledge that they might need. So when I was asked to speak at this conference, I kind of thought, what is it that I could share that I could potentially help to shape the future of education? And again, I just kept coming back to those foundations. So just like we've established the foundations at Minibugs, I had to begin my journey with establishing my foundations. So very similar to a parent picking a nursery that best suits their family, you have to pick a nursery that best suits you. You have to pick somewhere where you can thrive. And for me, this was very much in the company's missions and values, because a mission that gives us direction and something to aspire to, and values are the belief that a business and its behaviours are based on. They underpin everything you do every day. So as leaders and managers, this is the first thing we look at when it comes to our purpose. And staff investment, as mentioned before, is a belief that is deep rooted within our mission and value. So for me personally, the rewards I've seen in this career has hugely outweighed those challenges that we spoke about before. First and foremost, the children. Again, they're having this lasting impact, and coming back to the foundations, we are laying the foundations for the children. We are making a difference on children's futures, and that definitely shouldn't be overlooked. We work with people and mentoring. So as mentioned, I've seen a massive shift in morale and engagement, and working for a company that recognises people has seen better retention of skilled professionals. We foster a positive work culture leading to higher productivity, and we are seen, valued and empowered and full of resilience regardless of age or experience. So, and the other thing is a variety of roles, kind of very similar to what Verity was saying. There is such a variety of roles. Like quite often I find myself doing some marketing or doing some training, and I think this is so different to what I thought I was going to be doing when I went in to do my early childhood education. I thought I was going to just be surrounded by children all the time, but actually I'm having a massive impact on children, but through a different route. I'm making sure that those staff that are looking after the children are the best that they can be. So kind of what's next at the minute. At the beginning, I kind of talk about how I always knew I wanted to have a break from formal education, but I wanted to come back to it at a later point. Recently, I've completed my level 3 in education and training. So this is to allow me to be the best possible tutor I can be for our apprentices, our students, unqualified assistants. And I'm hoping that the next part of my journey is I can begin teaching the apprenticeships in childcare. So they will kind of happen in Minibugs. We're joining up with Cornwall Marine Network at the minute, which is great. So they're kind of providing me with all the training. There being those endpoint assessments, the Ofsted regular, all of those kind of bits that I don't really know a huge amount about. They're kind of dealing with all that, so I can spend my time mentoring and introducing the next wave of apprentices and people who are coming into the childcare industry. So with this, I am halfway through my level 3 CAVA course. So I'm able to teach the apprenticeships. Now I'll be able to assess them. So I'll be assessing the apprentices we have here at Minibugs, which is quite exciting because whilst I'm here, one, there's no getting away from me with the apprentices. So I'm constantly in there like, right, what are you doing? What can we do? What can I do to help? But also it just allows them a better support. They're not having to wait for their assessor to come in to ask them questions. Like I'm here, I'm responsive on Teams, emails, whatever it needs to be. Because actually going back to children, everyone learns different. Some people need more support than others. And there's times in their lives where they need a bit more support because of what they're going through. And then there's times where they're flying. We are building partnerships with colleges and universities. So we do a lot with Cornwall College at the minute. We have a lot of their student placements coming down. They always end up being offered jobs, which is fantastic. And we offer some paid placements and things like that. So that's always really exciting. I've been up to Cornwall College or St Austell College as well, and I've done a couple of sessions with their students, just talking about things that are in childcare, but a little bit out of the remit of the formal qualification that they're looking for. So I've been up there talking about how to come to interviews, how to do their CVs, kind of what we look for as employers when we're going through that interview process, and looking at all the transferable skills that they currently have from, you know, whether or not they're working at a local restaurant or in a care home, any kind of those things. There's lots of transferable skills that can be transferred over and later turn into a formal qualification. And lastly, this actually has been a really lovely experience, and this is something that I am really passionate about, and I do hope that it's something I can continue to do in the future. And I hope that sharing my story is always quite nice, and if it inspires anybody, then, you know, I feel really, really privileged to be able to do that. Naturally, the end to my presentation is questions, because I feel like it is a natural end to most presentations. So I will hand back over to Janet now. I'll stop sharing.
Well, the first thing, Rebecca, following my thank you very much, obviously, is, wow, if you've never done that before, then you need to do it again, because that was absolutely fantastic. So well done. And the transition from thinking about the work from Plymouth, we couldn't ask for a greater ambassador, could we? It was fantastic. And you validated the sorts of opportunities that Verity was talking about as well. Thank you so much. We don't have any specific questions in the chat. There's something I'm going to pick up with you offline about placements and T-level. So I'll be in touch about that, and we can chat about that. But for now, thank you so much. And again, I know how busy you are. You are more than welcome to stay and listen to Dr. Jacqueline Harding, who will be our next speaker. But if not, I will share any questions or any thoughts that come from our chat. But thank you so much, Rebecca. That was brilliant. Well done. Thank you. So, introduction to Dr. Jacqueline Harding. So Jacqueline is an international child development and education expert, recognised for her work advising the UK government, practitioners and parents. She's an honorary visiting research fellow at Middlesex University and chair of the Bright Start Foundation. She also represented the UK in developing essential digital criteria and establishing best practice for broadcasters, parents and teachers across Europe. I'm going to pause there and say wow already. And Jacqueline was privileged to pioneer and manage the Parent Channel TV platform for the UK government, a groundbreaking film-based resource for parents and practitioners. She continues to work on children's TV shows such as Peter Rabbit, Teletubbies, Clangers, you'll have heard of some of these, Bing and Betty Buys, and is a contributor to CBeebies Parenting. Jacqueline is a frequent speaker in the media and a former BBC education editor, government consultant and head teacher, as well as being, I don't know how you fit all of this in, Jacqueline, we're all in awe, as well as being the author of several best-selling books, including The Brain That Loves to Play and children's books for Ladybird. That's just a little summary of what Jacqueline continues to do. And I'm going to hand over to Jacqueline now. And Jacqueline, just to remind you, when you share your slides, I think you've got some audio on, so just to make sure that you share with sound. Over to you, Jacqueline.
Okay, let's have a go at sharing.
Thank you.
It should be, you should be able to see. Let's have a go if I do that. How's that looking? Are we all good?
That's looking fantastic. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, well, basically, just to say, everyone, I just have fun. And really, when you have fun in life, you learn and you can kind of follow your passion. So that would be my top tip, really, is just enjoy yourself and have fun. Today, I'm going to take you on a journey, so strap in. And you too can come on this journey of the brain that loves to play. And your brain and my brain will never be the same after this session. So watch out. Okay, so what's going on in that amazingly complex organ, the brain, that has this recursive ability? What does that mean, Jacqueline? That means that it's able to think about itself thinking. Wow. And when I said that, you began to think about yourself thinking. Don't deny it. You definitely would have done that. And the thing is that because we influence each other's brains, we will find that your brain at the end of this session will definitely have changed, and mine will have too. So what if I told you that over 90% of 4-year-olds that you come into contact with are creative geniuses? Okay, so you're thinking, Jacqueline, is that your research, or is that just your research, or are other people saying it? Well, actually, it's NASA's research and mine as well. So let me tell you what happened. NASA wanted the best brains in the world to work with them. Well, why wouldn't they? And so they devised this test for adults and found that it worked. And so George Land came along and said, do you know what? I think I'll devise a test to see how creative children can be. So he devised this test and found that at 4 years of age, children were creative geniuses. Aha. So what happened? So as time went by the time they were 9, 10, it reduced to 35%. By the time they were teenagers, young people, it reduced further. And by the time they were adults, it reduces to 2%. So you will say to me, what on earth is going on? What's going on? Well, the thing is, what's happened is that education was designed for an industrialized society, meaning that people were taught to be robots, in other words, and to not think out of the box and not to be creative. And the trouble is, as you and I will know, that a lot of education is just not fit for purpose. And just imagine how you would feel if you knew you retained that creative genius. You know that program that's on at the moment, Secret Genius? I bet some of you are secret geniuses if you work with children, because children will inspire you to be creative again. And I'm going to convince you by the end of this talk that it is possible to be as creative as you wish it to be. And what I know now is that children will definitely think out of the box if you give them half a chance. Now, I was in the garden the other day, and my neighbour has I think he's about 4.5-year-old, and they've got a new trampoline out there. And I overheard him saying to his mum, just watch out for my head, that it doesn't, when I go on the trampoline, that I don't bump into some of those airplanes overhead. He was thinking out of the box, able to be whatever he wanted to be. And it just shows that if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got, meaning that we do need to think in fresh, energizing ways. And you may say, well, Jacqueline, how on earth have you managed to fit all that into your life? Well, you can tell it's because of my enthusiasm and because of my passion. And I'm not alone in this. You too can have that. So play and cognition, I don't know whether you can see this. This is my cognition, and I have lots of toys to show you. This is cognition, this is play. Now, what happens is that they are inextricably linked together. So we often say, well, we just need to help children learn. Aha, what we really need to do is help children be creative through play, because their brains are literally like sponges. And yes, I've studied brain development, and it blew my mind, literally, because I know now its capacity. And when you know this secret, you too will go, aha. So things are not quite as they might seem. So I've done lots of research with medical experts, with this poor guy, you'll meet him in a minute if I can get round to this video, who was a medical doctor and a scientist, and I made him go into schools, and he became this creative person, which you'll see in a moment. But as I've worked with companies like Sony, with BBC, and with lots of other toy companies as well, I've been privileged to work with, the nugget of what I do is, I think, what can children do? What is it that can make the difference for them? And I'm chair of Bright Start, which I think you know about. And one thing we say is, if we change the beginning, we can change the whole story. And that's really quite important, because if you start at the beginning, and we must start at the beginning, then the whole story can change, rather than having to play catch up later on. And these are what neurons look like and how they're connecting at different ages. And what happens is the neural groove from about, I don't know, I think it's about 24 weeks. No, actually, it's 3 weeks after conception, only 3 weeks, the neural groove begins to close. So that brain development is in action right from the start. And by the time the baby's born, they've got about 128 billion neurons. That's as many stars as there are in the Milky Way. So they've got plenty of neurons to play with. And you know what? We used to think that as you get older, and as you're sitting there, that you do not have neuroplasticity, meaning the capacity to continue learning, to continue to absorb new information. Rubbish. We know something really quite profound now. We know, wait for this, this morning when you got up and you thought about having your coffee and you thought, well, this is what I'm going to do today, you were given, and this is roughly, and it depends on lots of different circumstances and health and dementia and all the rest of it. So just pushing that aside, bear with me. You were given, these are my neurons, by the way. No, they're not toys. Of course they're toys. So you were given about 700 new neurons when you woke up. Now, what has 700 new neurons got to do with anything? Well, they're not much use on their own, as you'll see in a moment. And once you've seen this, you will never, ever forget. What's important is that they join up. Now, this is why I'm telling you that by the end of this talk, your brain and my brain will never be the same again, because we are learning to join up our neurons. Now, neurogenesis, that is the word, that's your word for the day. Neurogenesis, meaning that you can continue to grow. Right, let's take a look at this. Here we go. This is a neuron joining up with another neuron. Take a look at this. Here it goes. Wait for it. Thinking about it. That neuron is about to join up, and there it's gone. There you are. It's joined up. Now, once you've seen that, you'll never be able to forget that. And the thing with brains is that they are predicting organs. They spend a lot of their time, well, in fact, all of the time, predicting what might happen. And when it does that, it's kind of a precious resource. And I believe that we mustn't waste children's brains, their brain power. We mustn't waste our own brain power. And because it's a predicting organ, it's spending its time thinking about budgets. No, not the type of monetary budget, but it's thinking about how to use its body and brain budget, how best to use it and what not to waste its time on. Now, let me prove this point to you. Take a look at this and have a think what this might be. Have a think. You can put it in the chat. Have a think. I mean, humour me. Play along with my game. Have a think. Now, I'm going to show you what it is. It is, in fact, a bottle. Now, your brain did some serious work because I tricked you. Earlier on, I picked up my bottle and I drank from the bottle, giving your brain a signal about what it might be. And so it used its prediction, if you happen to have noticed me, to do that. It used its prediction powers to consider what it might be. How about if I said to you, twinkle, twinkle, and you would say, and I know you're muted, but you would say, little star, because your brain will predict the end of it. How clever is that? Or if I said, once upon a, and you would all be saying to me, once upon a time. So it does all of this wonderful prediction. Now, if you're not convinced, take a look at this and think, I wonder what that is. And you're likely to say to me, that's a tap, Jacqueline, isn't it? And water? Well, take a look at this about how easily our brains can predict things that aren't even right. Take a look at this. Aha! So that would have fooled you. Now, why is this important? Because right from start, we're setting up little brains to predict for the best. This is what we want. And you've probably heard of the term serve and return. Let me show you what this little baby, just a few weeks old, is beginning to predict. And this is beautiful because this little baby was very ill, and he was filmed during a time when he was crying and crying and crying and crying. And his mother took him to his neighbour and she comforts him. Watch what happens. This is just beautiful.
No, because it hurts. Yes, it hurts. You cry. And mommy said, what happened? And papi said, what are you doing? You crying. And crying. Yes, don't eat. No. The Alfred, no. Mommy, give me food. Mommy, give me food. Oh, really? Oh, ¿a poco? You so liar. Yes, I know you. You so liar. Yes. You alarm the people, but you okay. Yes. Yes. Uh-huh. 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 What happened? Are you with Alfred?
That's so beautiful, isn't it? So what is going on in the child's brain? Take a moment to think about everything I've just said about neuroplasticity. Take a moment to think about prediction. Take a moment to think about joining up of neurons and what might be happening in the child's brain. Then also think about what's happening in the adult's brain. Now, that could be a carer, that could have been the parent. In this case, it was the next door neighbor. But take a moment to reflect on just what I've been saying and how important that is. I'll give you 20 seconds. I haven't got 3 minutes because I've got a lot to go through. Just 20 seconds to think about that prediction. How important is it? Okay, because we've got our seatbelts on and we're going up fast paced here, we really don't have much time. But just to say that all of this work, and in fact, that little video is in my books, The Brain That Loves to Play is already out, and that's published by Routledge. I'm not here to sell my books or anything, but I've also got other books coming out, which I'll show you at the end. But in my books, I use little videos like that to explain about brain development. And I think that's one of the things I've enjoyed most, is using these real life fly on the wall videos in my books to help people understand very complex things, which you and I can understand. It isn't rocket science. You and I can understand what's going on in a child's brain. Now, I'm going to tell you something really quite extraordinary, which is, this is how the brain lights up. Okay, so this is an example, so you can see my Christmas decorations here, of how the brain is lighting up. Now, we used to talk about right hemisphere and left hemisphere a lot. Now, what play does is works right across both hemispheres. It literally, well, no, not literally, but it lights up the neurons and gets them firing in ways that we never knew were possible. And that's the prefrontal cortex, which enables you to think and enables you to think about yourself thinking. And it enables you to predict. And so we need to help children make the best of their brains. And in many ways, we're like little electricians with children's brains, because we can help them make the best of what's going on in there. Now, if you haven't been blown away, this next little bit will definitely blow you away. Now, bear with me again. These are my Christmas toys and all sorts of toys, because I like making things really as simple as possible, because I'm a bear of simple brain too. So this is like a neuron, and inside our genes rather, we can, just through imagination and through play, light up genes from within the nerve cells, just by thinking about it. And I will prove that to you in a moment. So imagination is more important than knowledge. Now, Einstein said that. So he knew something. He knew, and he was dead clever, wasn't he? He knew that imagination is more important than knowledge. Just hold on to that thought, and I will show you why. Okay, let me just sidestep a little bit. This here was taken inside an MRI scan, but we say fMRI scan, where the mother was cuddling the baby, and you can see the same parts of the brain lighting up. How cool is that? And you saw that on the video as well. So there's a massive burst, an exuberant period when a baby's first born. And that neural coupling, that's what we call it, neural coupling, will make all the difference. And if we're able to do that, then we strengthen those neural pathways. We can strengthen those feel-good feelings and the dopamine and all those wonderful reward centers, serotonin and all those wonderful feel-good chemicals that actually help us function as humans in life. So when we think about that, and that was called reciprocal responsiveness. You could see the mother and the baby and the lighting up of the brains. What's also important is whilst I've been talking, this is your brain and this is my brain. And it's not spooky. It's a known fact now that we influence each other's brains. And when we're working with children, we're doing the same. So the more imaginative, the more creative you can be, the more you will influence children and children will influence you. And that's an important brain network which is shared, and it's supported by the oxytocin system, which you saw happening in the brain of the mother and the baby. So we configure and reconfigure each other's physiology. And as I'm talking, you're influencing me. Unfortunately, because I can't see you, you have less of an impact on me at the moment, but we would actually be influencing each other. So imagination turns genes on or off at the nerve cells. Do you remember I said that? Let's take a look. So this is eye gaze, shared attention, and proximity. I did some lovely work for Fisher-Price, and they said to me, Jacqueline, we really want to know what happens in an adult's brain when they play with children. So you'd think that being a toy company, they'd be like, yeah, what's happening for children? And they would know. We want to know what's happening for adults and also for older siblings. And this research showed me that there is something called playful triangulation. So if you think of it just like a triangle, in this case, the older child is, I think he's about 9 years old there. He's acting like the adult. He has eye gaze looking at his younger brother. They have shared attention on an object and they are close together. What you'll find is when you go back into practice, or if you're studying at university or college or wherever you are, and when you work with children or you play with children, notice that playful triangulation, which will be influencing your brain. So you'll be influencing the children and the children will be influencing you. And this is something I also talk about in my books. So you can learn a little bit more. I can only have time to just dip into this, but it's so exciting. And this is what stimulates me. You might have heard of the still face experiment. This is also in my books as well. Take a look at this. Dad starts off by being really interactive, really positive, and then I ask him to be still. Watch what happens. Take a look. So you can see here that when Dad was full on and the little one was predicting that there'd be this wonderful social interaction, he was all happy. And then as soon as Dad stop being responsive, or maybe looking at his phone, which he wasn't at that case, and stop being responsive, the baby began to be a little bit troubled, and he was predicting that things were not right. And what we want with little ones is for them to predict good social interaction. And that little still face experiment really explains that. Okay, so we have this brain network. I've been talking about the neurobiology of imagination and how important imagination is, because it's part of prediction. We are predicting good things, and we want little ones to predict good things. Now you might be saying, well, imagination, surely that's something that's child's play. That's not something that I should do. Aha. Let me explain. Now, Pascal Leon was a researcher, and he thought, I'm just going to see really whether imagination is that powerful or not. So he set up an experiment. 2 hours a day, he got one group of people to play the piano for 5 days, 2 hours a day, you know, and then the next one, the one down, mental practice, they were told to only think about playing the piano. So they'd be going, just in their heads, pretending to do it for 2 hours for 5 days. And then the control group did nothing. I mean, never be in a control group. That's really boring in research. So if you look at the results from the physical practice and the mental practice, hardly any difference. So that proves that imagination can do a vast amount of work, mental work in the brain. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't practice the piano. Of course you should, but it does show how impactful the brain can be. Okay, so when we come back, I was going to give you a 10 minutes break. We don't have time for 10 minutes. I'm only going to give you a comfort break of 5 minutes, and then I'm going to wow your brain with more nuggets around creativity. So I will see you in exactly 5 minutes. Is that okay, Janet? 5 minutes?
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Can I just say to people, please don't log off, stay on, but absolutely stretch your legs, and see you in 5.
Yeah,
Thank you,
5 minutes,
Jacqueline.
not 10 minutes, I'm afraid.
5.
5, just went to the loo.
We've had some incredible speakers this morning, so do keep using the chat and take advantage of this little time to stretch your legs, maybe get a quick drink if you can, and join us back in a few minutes' time. Please keep thoughts and questions and comments coming into the chat. We'll also have opportunities at the end to do a review and collect some feedback. So thank you to my colleague Gemma for doing that, and we'll take some time to do that at the end. Angie, any thoughts and reflections for people who are not taking advantage of the comfort break?
No, but well, it's because I'm too excited to take a comfort break. Can I just say I filled my notepad up because Jacqueline, it's very inspiring. Information that, you know, we sort of knew, but we now you've enlightened us a little bit more. I think that's what is so amazing for me. It's really triggered my neurons. So I think for me it's been a great opportunity. So please do use the chat if you too have been inspired. And I think it's a great opportunity to try some of these little experiments whilst you're on your work placements with the children, and just see for yourself yourself how children react in those different situations and the engagement that you have with them, because it's fascinating. And it's one that I used to do with my children and still do when I'm out and about and I see babies in a pushchair. I can't help myself. I have to have that interaction and just see them light up when you have that interaction with them. It's quite fascinating to do it. So try it when you're out and about, because it's a great way of having that connection.
Yeah, that proximity is really important, isn't it? It makes you think about how you interact and the quality of those interactions, and the quality of interactions and the passion that's coming through from all of our speakers today about advocating for babies, children and their families is just the golden thread of the conference. It's absolutely incredible. So I do hope you're all being able to take something. I'm sure you'll be able to take something away from today, and be inspired to learn more as you continue on your journey. I'm trying to think if one thing that sticks out from all speakers. I love the fact that Plymouth University students have got the opportunity to earn while they are studying in a relevant area as well, and of course that was validated by Rebecca, but also that one of the students started the beach school. How fascinating is that? How amazing
Incredible.
is that? Wonderful, isn't it, to hear that? And now when we think about the importance of really understanding the babies and children that we work with, how Jacqueline's taking us further on that journey and really focusing in, and it's just incredible to think of the influence and the impact that we have when we're working with babies and children, and that's a serious responsibility. So fantastic.
Yeah. But one thing, Janet, that you were saying, that what connects them all, what connects all of us is the passion. Like Jacqueline said, it's that passion and that enthusiasm. And I'm sure I can vouch for everybody that's here today. And that's what we are when we're in early years. We're passionate.
Absolutely.
Okay, are we ready for another onslaught? Oh, you've got your brains in gear. Okay, right, strap in. So why do I talk about play poverty? I talk about play poverty because it is a thing. And if we really want education to work, if we really want children to learn, then we have to let play do the heavy lifting. It does mentally the heavy lifting. And once you realize that, everything just falls into place. And there's you can imagine little pegs in the brain. And this is my numbers. These are when Jacqueline was a little girl and she started learning about numbers. She's got a peg in her brain about numbers. She's got a peg in her brain like colours. Oh, yeah, okay, I remember my colours. I've also got pegs in my brain, little hooks that I have around who I am, my self-belief. Now, I would stress that who children think they are is the biggest peg of all. Knowing who you are, self-worth, having positive self-identity, knowing that someone's going to look at you, so knowing that somebody is interested in you will always make the biggest difference. Okay, so this is a book that I wrote some time ago. This one isn't available anymore, but it's about creative well-being. Take a look at some of the research that we did around creativity. This one's only a couple of minutes because I've got to go speedy here. Actually, Janet, have I got until 12 o'clock to talk or until 10 to? How long have I got?
Absolutely, go to 12, Jacqueline. I wouldn't want to cut any of this. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Oh, well, I'll relax now. Okay,
Please
so
do.
whizzing you on too fast then, you poor things. Okay, so this is the poor medical doctor that I dragged into two very deprived schools where children didn't know where to go to the toilet. And so they were going to the toilet in the playgrounds. They just didn't know. And I was asked to do some research to turn the whole curriculum into a creative experience, because the children didn't want to go to school, the teachers didn't want to go to school, the assistants didn't want to go to school, and the parents were depressed. And so we were allowed in, this very creative being, this poor terrified doctor and scientist came in with me, and we filmed the wonderful teachers here who were willing to turn it into a creative experience, along with a performance artist and a visual artist. And we saw the most remarkable things. Just take a look at this little film.
Creativity, there are some different to you. Firstly, we're looking at creativity from the point of view of the body and the perspective of human health. We're looking at creativity from the perspective of neurophysiology, which is the way in which the brain and nervous system interact with creativity. What we and other researchers are seeing is that creativity has this beneficial effect in relationship to children's stress and to their physical, emotional, and mental well-being.
Here we're going to see an example of a child during the preparation, leap and landing stage. Here's Paige as she gathers together her materials. We can see the seriousness on her face, her quick, purposeful body movements indicating the surge of energy she feels about her project. She moves around the room, seeking out the materials she needs for her model. We can see the focused concentration, and she's scoring highly on the child involvement scale. Paige's relaxed body frame and mouth shows deep concentration and involvement at the start of this creative experience. Now she begins to enter the leap stage, where there are breakthroughs, realizations, ahas, revelations. Paige is normally quite pale and sometimes distracted, is now becoming focused and deliberate in her actions. Her greater skin profusion, the facial flushing, shows just how it alters her biological state. At this stage, for the landing, where an enormous amount of energy is released, Paige wishes to share with her friend and with her teacher, celebrating her success. The human nervous system seems to reward itself for gaining that deeper understanding of reality.
We've been looking at creativity.
Amazing. And so I developed what's called the Tomorrow's Child Assessment Tool, which I use across TV shows as well. And when I work on with toy companies as well, I want to see how creative children can be. I want television shows to be the very best that they can be. If children are going to invest in screen time, then it better be the best. So although you can tell I'm very nice, I really do lay down the law, if you like, about how screen time really needs to be very, very good and not waste children's time. So it mustn't be too crash bang and all the rest of it. And if you look at some of my work, you'll see with Becky Buys, just that real calming thing is so important. And here are some what I called the 10 E's of creativity: the enthusiasm, the excitement, and then it all adds up to that eureka moment. And when you're like that, you get to that point of having that eureka moment where everything makes sense. Now, when does that occur? Well, these are the waves in your brain. And really what we want is this one here, the alpha waves. They're really good for us. And it's a bit like this. Okay, so children, babies, when they're born and up to, well, even to 4 years of age, have this capacity to kind of think in a broader way like this. And what happens to us, and through the education system that isn't always that healthy, we get to being a bit like this, which is very targeted. And that isn't quite so helpful for creative thinking. In fact, it's really unhelpful. And what we need to do as adults, in order to influence little brains, is to be much more creative and very settled in our thinking and our behavior and our beliefs in ourselves as well. And I talk a lot about that in my work and in my books, about how we really need to look after ourselves, and we need to look after our brains, because without that, we're going to inhibit our ability to be creative. So these are some of the observable changes. You heard me in that voiceover talking about how the children behave when they're in a real creative space, their exuberance, the skin pallor, and breathing rate, the displays of excitement, and often children will blink faster as well, and the eye changes. So I've developed this tool for actually recognizing how children are doing. So you can't really open their brains, obviously, and take a look. So I look at their body language and their micro and macro expressions. So that's called my involvement and engagement tool. Just take a look at what happens when a frog appears. This is in one of my books as well.
Oh, I found it's one of our frogs. Maybe it's one of the frogs that we had last year. That was a tadpole. Oh, they're just like a frog. Exactly. And before it becomes a frog, it's a tadpole, and then it's a froglet. Well done. Yes, a froglet. And then after it's a froglet, it becomes a ginormous frog.
Like that one.
Like that one there.
That must be one of our frogs, because I don't think a different frog would come to us if it wasn't ours.
That makes a lot of sense.
Remember when we found one next to the shed?
Sorry?
No,
Well, Dexter is saying something very important. Yes, Dexter?
there might be a squirrel at my house.
Oh, I see.
There might be a frog.
Uh-huh.
This frog is different.
This frog is different.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Is it moving again?
Moving.
Yes.
I think. Guys, be quiet for a second. You know what I think? I think it came in this pool because a bird was chasing.
Absolutely delightful. Can you kind of think about how that adult was responding to the children? She allowed them the space to follow their ideas. She allowed them to have that recognition and their voice to be heard. I thought that was quite important. And when you think about what's going on in the child's brain at that moment, what's going on in the child's brain is, I am allowed to predict, and I'm allowed to predict something positive. So that social interaction, the way that the teacher's talking to the child says you are important. What you've got to say is important. And what's going on in the adult's brain is this reciprocal responsiveness. She too is getting into that imaginative space and allowing herself the luxury of being creative, which is what will spur us on to be even better practitioners, even better as parents, even better as aunts and uncles and grandparents. It's how we look after our brains and little ones' brains as well. So what we want, so the whole little humans take in via the senses, through the eyes, through the hearing, through the senses, we take in information from the world. And that becomes like electrical and chemical signals through our bodies. Really? Yes, absolutely. It's influenced by what's going on. And you can see this gorgeous little boy is eating something, is looking at something, the touch, the hearing, and the smell. All of those senses collide in the brain, goes through a bit of chaos to begin with, and then very cleverly begins to work out how the world works. So it's a complex organ which needs tremendous respect. And so that's why I go around the world talking about why we need to look after little brains and how practically it's not that hard. We can easily do that. Now, let me tell you why it's so important. Somebody called Rod, I think his name's Hanson. His name's Rod Hanson. And not all neuroscientists agree with this, but I tend to think it's pretty true. What happens in our thinking and our brains is that we can be a little bit, and this is my Velcro here, Velcro, for things that are bad. For things that are said to us and things that are negative, it's very difficult to get them out of our heads. And it's like, we can't get rid of it very easily. And it's also for the things that are good in our lives, it tends to be a little bit like Teflon for the good. So the things that are told us that are good are more difficult to assimilate, to take in. That's why, let's say, for example, I came off this talk and Janet said to me, I mean, she wouldn't, she's so nice. She said to me, great talk, Jacqueline, loved it. What a shame that you forgot the last 20 minutes. And I didn't really like your pictures of that little boy. If she said all of those wonderful things to me, the thing I'm more likely to remember are the negatives. So the brain then, Jacqueline would predict that next time I'm going to get criticised. Can you see how important that is for little children? Can you see how important that is for you? That you begin to calm your own nervous system down and help calm the nervous systems of little children, because we can be like Velcro for the things that are negative in our lives. And what happens is there's a little bit in the brain, I don't know if you can see this, but this is an almond, and there's a little bit in your brain which is called the amygdala, and in here it's can do a lot of damage, really, because it can become flooded. It's like a guard dog. It's sort of saying, warning, warning, something isn't going right. Warning, warning, I feel threatened here. Warning, warning, nobody likes me. And the whole nervous system begins to get a bit frantic. It's a bit like this. It goes into panic. And this is what happens. So the whole nervous system starts to panic. And what we don't want is little ones to get into that cycle, or even ourselves. It doesn't feel good when you panic. It's better to have that calming environment, a reassuring environment, an environment which is largely spent outdoors, because that's one of the most calming things for us, with music and with dance and movement, not stress. Because what can happen, and this could have happened to you even today or yesterday, that your emotions or children's emotions can get bigger and bigger and bigger, like I was blowing up this balloon, until, and I was with a little boy just yesterday who was, I could feel him getting higher and higher and higher with his chaos and not feeling good about himself, that in the end he burst. He absolutely burst with it all. So that calming environment, the way that we talk to children and the resources we use, can be a bit like a buffer. And when I go running, which believe me isn't very often, I wouldn't dream of just running down the road in my slippers or my high heels. I would definitely be having a buffer in my trainers. And we all need, children and us, need to protect ourselves and the way that we think by giving ourselves and little ones a buffer in order to protect this very, very fragile thing called the brain that soaks in information, as you can see, from the environment and from other brains. We are very sensitive and we pick up cues and clues from other people and other children around us. And how we feel about that, and remember I said imagination is more important than knowledge, actually affects our genes. More Christmas decorations, I don't bother putting them away now. This is our genes, which are not set in stone. Not set in stone, would you believe it? So the way that we treat ourselves and we treat others can actually help. I mean, this is a very complex theory that I'm making simple in order for us to understand. But I'm sure you can understand how important it is how we relate to other people. And in the nursery or in the school, how the adults talk to each other is really important because little ones are watching. As you know, they watch us all the time. So we have to be careful what we do. So going back to our thought about how creative little ones can be, the other day, a dad told me this funny story. He said, I think she was 5 actually. She said, Dad, I want a cat, or Dad, I want a cat. And Dad was saying, no, I'm so sorry, you can't have a cat because I'm allergic to cats. So I'm afraid we couldn't have one in the house. And she turned to Dad and said, hey, don't worry about that. You can sleep outside. I mean, obviously it's ridiculous and Dad couldn't sleep outside, but her ability to think round and find solutions, however sometimes wrong they might be, but being encouraged to think about solutions is really, really important. And in my books, I do talk about this creativity and the solution-focused mentality. Take a look at the ants and the magnifying glass. This is also something that's, I think it's in the brain that loves to play.
Oh, maybe what is that? What is that? Every ants are coming out.
Oh, look, there's some behind you, Cece.
And they're coming.
Oh, and there's some here, Lily.
Yeah.
You're going to get on the sofa.
Where? Where in the cloth?
In the cloth. They hide in under the cloth. Where are the cracks? Have a look. Not any there? No.
I see there's some here.
Well, there's some in the, between the slabs.
Yeah. Here. Can I put my toys here?
Of course you can. Thank you for asking, but yes, you can.
Ants! Run away! There are too many ants! Run away!
Oh, no. They won't do anything to you, though, will they?
No. That one just came on my finger. I just want to fly.
Who's bigger, you or the ants?
Big.
You're bigger than the ants.
No! The ants are little.
The ants are little, yes. And Dexter is big and tall.
Yeah.
Yeah? What about you, Lily? Who's bigger, the ant or Lily? Lily. Oh, what's there, Dexter? Oh, they're crab apples. We can't eat those apples. They're called crab apples. Crab apples. No, they're not for eating. That's right. Oh, come. What did you... Come. Oh, you hurt your toes. You were coming. Weren't you in there, Cece?
Yeah, I'm looking at her.
What is that called that you have on your hand?
It's for apple.
What is it called, though? Do you know? Magnifying? Well done. Oh no, one is dead. And do the ants look bigger with that magnifying glass?
No. But it looks a bit bigger.
It looks a bit bigger, doesn't it? It enlarges them. Oh, look, there's an ant now here. Oh, where's it gone? There it is.
It's big, my foot.
Oh, only one here, Lily.
Oh my God.
Is your foot big?
Oh my God, one under there.
You can go and get one, Dexter. Where could they be?
How wonderful that when you think about how that child made the relationship between big and small and then went off of her own accord to go and get something that would enlarge it and then demonstrate to herself big and small. So when we offer children their own learning experiences and that we believe in their ability to be creative, they'll go and get a magnifying glass. They're so invested in it. And so was the adult as well. Her curiosity was feeding the young brain, and the child being curious was also that reciprocal responsiveness, that relationship between the adult and the child is crucial in order to bring about that learning that is creative and generous and exuberant and full of life and full of positivity rather than the Velcro for the bad. And we don't want the good things that are happening to bounce off children's brains. We want them to have that mindset, which is creative and is positive and is able to learn, the belief that they can learn. And why? Because it is so important. You heard the doctor there talking about psychoneuroimmunology. Even I fall over that word. And it is an antidote to stress. Too many children and too many adults are stressed. And stress does us no good whatsoever. And you might say to me, well, how come people don't know what you know, Jacqueline, that play is the antidote? Well, I'm going around the world banging on about it and writing books about it and making films to talk about it. And I hope you too will join me in the quest to say that if we want children to build up their immune cells, to feel better about themselves, and for their biology and their mental states to be better, then they need to play. The dopamine, the oxytocin, the serotonin, all those endorphins do all the buffering. There's something called the parasympathetic nervous system. Para meaning coming alongside. And the parasympathetic nervous system is the bit that's stroked, if you like, and boosted up when children play and when they're being creative and when they're taken seriously about their play and when they know what they know and when they're given the right to express knowing what they know. Let's take a look at what happens. This is creativity. Do you remember I talked about those alpha brain waves? Creativity gives you more alpha brain waves. Stress gives you less and more beta waves. So we're aiming for those alpha waves where you're calm, but you are at the peak of your thinking. The greater heart rate variability, which is good for you, greater parasympathetic activity, meaning you're being stroked because you have all those endorphins and serotonins and all of those that are actually making you feel good. And the greater skin perfusion, you're feeling alive. and you have then better long-term memory. You can remember things because remember I said that play actually reduces the cognitive load. And it also helps sort out. Sometimes our brains can be a little bit like this inside. It's all in a bit of a muddle like this. And play gives children the chance for their brains to unravel and for them to settle and to get into those alpha brain waves and the deeper breathing, greater fluency. In other words, creativity and play just can't stop doing good things. This is one of my new books coming out quite soon, which is about laughter. Laughter is an underestimated source. We need to laugh more. We need to have more joy. Take a listen to this. That actually had COVID at that time. He wasn't at all well. And human connection works well for the brain, also works well. I mean, obviously it's not going to heal absolutely everything, but it certainly does an awful lot of the groundwork. So I've been investigating laughter. How cool is that? And as you begin to use your 700 new neurons, roughly, every day, and you start building them up and you start being creative yourself and you start thinking differently and believing in yourself, then you too will make the leap from one place to another. And here's the brain that loves to play, just quickly to show you. And there's my new book coming out, Laughter. So if you want to laugh, totally get that one. There's another book that I've got. Yeah, I have been a bit busy. This one's about talk. And it comes with these two gorgeous children's books as well, The Treasure Hunt. We love to talk. And there's a little code here that I think will give you a little bit of money off as well. We all need that, don't we? Anyway, there you go. Thank you so much for extending your brains with me, and I will stop sharing and come back to you.
Here I am. Yes.
Ideal. Thank you, Jacqueline. Absolutely incredible and amazing, and everybody will have taken something from that. And I know, and again, from all our speakers, so I want to say thank you to Jacqueline, to Rebecca, to Verity, and to the NCFE colleagues that we have on the call, to Gemma, to Kay, to Angie. Thank you so much for all your help and support. And you know what? Most of all, to the knowledge, knowing that actually you as students and staff members, all of us in fact, the difference that you're going to make to the babies and the children, almost, it's so emotive, it makes me want to cry, to be honest, because you are going to make such a positive difference, and you can do that to each other. Just reflecting very quickly on what Jacqueline was saying there about let's share a bit of that kindness, a bit of that humanity. I love it. Absolutely fantastic messages. So thank you to everybody for a wonderful, wonderful conference this morning. I just want to close by handing over to Gemma, who's going to take us through some feedback. But thank you everyone so much.
Thank you, Janet. I just want to say I've had an absolutely wonderful morning. If only every morning could be like this morning. It's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Verity, Becky and Jacqueline. You're amazing, all of you. Becky, amazing. You'll definitely be back, I'm sure. I've just popped into the chat a quick QR code and a short little form. We'd love to get your feedback for this morning so that we can continue to have these wonderful events and have you all with us. I look forward to them. I hope you do too, and I hope you continue to bring yourself and your students along and get those neurons firing. So thanks so much, everybody. It's been wonderful.
Absolutely. Go believe in yourselves.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's been brilliant.